Hello. So day 4 begins with another goodbye, leaving Iceland, and we flew to Frankfurt, where we had planned to take like a 5-hour train ride to Switzerland. And it just seemed a lot more practical online on the phone, but it was not. We got on the wrong train for an hour, waited another hour to head back in the right direction, caught another train, and then somehow got off too early. So by this point, whatever whimsical European train journey I had imagined was long gone. Thankfully, there were a couple of like really kind women at the station that we got off at that helped us figure out how to catch a tram to get to the right train station, especially because the town that we got lost in was having a huge conference and it would have cost us 1,000 Swiss francs to book a hotel. So, yes, we figured out that tram, and eventually the chaos gave way to beautiful nightly views. And then finally, we got to Bern, Switzerland. And so, after an entire day of traveling and trying to figure out where we were going, my sister in law found us at the train station where people were throwing it up in celebration of the World Cup. Sometimes the journey just doesn't go according to plan, but we made it, and I'm excited to share that Switzerland was definitely worth the trouble. So, day 5 was our first full day in Switzerland. Our first stop was Maison Callier, the Nestle Chocolate Factory Museum. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Now, listen, there are museums that you visit because you want to learn something, and then there are museums where they hand you a shit ton of chocolate, and I think you can guess which kind I prefer. The experience is actually really interactive. You walk through the history of chocolate, violent history is acknowledged. You learn about the ingredients, where they come from, and you get to see how Cahier chocolate is made. But obviously, my favorite part came at the end, the tasting room. And this wasn't one tiny sample and then like politely move along. There were chocolates. So many chocolates. And yes, I took the assignment very seriously. But what I also loved about Maison Cahier was that it didn't feel like we had to pick between doing something interesting for adults or boring and doing something fun for the kids. So there's like space for them to explore, things to see and interact with. And of course, outside, there's a playground. I feel like everywhere in Switzerland has a playground, which when you're traveling with littles, it's the equivalent of finding like an oasis. And then there's the setting itself, right? Like the house, the old factory is in this really beautiful part of Switzerland. And when you step outside, you're just really surrounded by this quiet green landscape, the mountains in the distance. And it just feels like someone designed the backdrop, like just experience, like specifically for this whole experience. It was very like the sound of music. It was sweet and playful and just completely different from the chaos from the day before. There was a lot less figuring out where we were supposed to be. And, we were just really simply enjoying where we were. And they had a great matcha. And so, yeah, we're off to a pretty good start. So, after eating my weight in chocolate, we made a much less glamorous but necessary stop at the supermarché to grab some food. Because even in Switzerland, the kids expect to be fed actual meals and not just cahier chocolat. And then from there, we headed to Montreux, sorry, right along the shores of Lake Geneva. Originally, the timing of this trip was supposed to work out a little differently. The 60th Montreux Jazz Festival had just wrapped up, like the weekend before we arrived. Um, but between me getting COVID and like a last minute change to my husband's like work schedule, the trip just got pushed back. Now, I'll admit, after being in Montreux, I was a little disappointed that we missed this festival, but I've started to realize that travel is sometimes less about experiencing a place exactly the way you imagined it, and more about seeing what that place has to offer when you actually get there. And Montreux still had plenty. We walked along Lake Geneva. The mountains were rising up across the water, and like the whole waterfront feeling was just something out of a fairy tale. And of course, we had to stop and see Mr. Freddie Mercury. So Montreux actually was a very special place for Freddie and Queen, and they recorded several albums here and lived here. And today his statue stands right along the lake, facing the water. And it felt like this little piece of music history that was tucked into like an already beautiful place. Yeah. Wow. So beautiful. I'm so mad I waited so long to come here. And then we walked and walked and we walked some more. I think it was actually like 2 miles, which is not a lot, but when you have kids that don't usually walk as much, Colorado, you've got to drive everywhere. But like walking along Lake Geneva and watching the kids play, take it in the mountains and the lake, I was not upset at all. It was amazing. It was very whimsical. And while we may have missed the festival, we definitely would come back. Um, Montreux was just enough. It was just beautiful. Here we are, day 6. It was like an hour and a half drive, but we kicked off everything as a good day in Europe should start with an aperitif. We really needed to fuel up before casually hiking to one of Switzerland's most impressive dams, the Moivosson Dam. And this place was just incredible. The higher we climbed, the more the landscape started to feel less like somewhere we were visiting and more like we'd accidentally wandered onto the set of Lord of the Rings. The mountains, the green valleys, some waterfalls pouring down a couple of cliffs. I was really expecting like an elf and some hobbits to appear at any moment. Now here's where we got to show off a little bit. Moivosson sits at a pretty serious elevation, I think like maybe around 1,800 meters. But we live at high altitude in Colorado, and this was actually still a little bit below what we're used to. So I'm sure while other people are saying, oh, but the altitude, we were like, altitude? What altitude? I'll take my victories where I can get them, especially from all the chocolate we ate. The hike itself takes you through these tunnels carved directly into the mountain, which were equally incredible and creepy. And it just makes you wonder, like, what exactly might be lurking in here. But throughout the hike, there's also these historical displays that tell the story of the dam, how it was built, the people behind it, and what it took to create something this massive in the middle of the Alps, which was so fascinating. and also convenient because anytime you needed to stop hiking, you're obviously not tired. No, you're not tired. You're just taking a break so that you can read and learn and appreciate Swiss history. So don't rush me. I'm being cultured. And then you finally get to the dam and realize just how enormous it is. You know, standing there surrounded by mountains, looking at something that human beings somehow managed to build into this landscape, you feel very, very small and insignificant. I think that's what I love the most about this part of Switzerland and the trip is that everything felt bigger than us. It felt wilder than us. It felt magical, whimsical, and for a few hours, somewhere high in the Swiss Alps, me and my family got to be a bunch of hobbits. I would say elves, but we're all short. Well, Lana got to be an elf. She's tall. My daughter got to be an elf, but yeah. Oh my god, this is so cool. Yeah, except for cottage. So I'm in this tunnel. We're going to a dam. We just came down a tunnel, so we have to go up a tunnel. And well, the kids are like crushing it. Me and Huguette, however, we are doing our best. But it's actually at the altitude we live at in Colorado. So for me, it's not so bad in terms of my lungs, but my feet and my legs are like, girl, what are you doing?